Τώρα, θα ήθελα σε αυτή τη στιγμή να ακούσουμε τον Geert Demuijnck, ο οποίος είναι ο πρόεδρος του EBEN Ευρώπης, είναι τη θέση την οποία πήρε από μένα πριν από μερικά χρόνια. Είναι και καθηγητής στο business ethics και φιλοσοφία στο business school της Lille στη Γαλλία και θα είμαι πολύ ευτυχής να τον ακούσουμε. Σας ευχαριστώ πολύ για την ώρα. Θα τα πούμε σε λιγάκι.
Am I supposed to talk now? Yes.
Yes.
Good. Okay. Thank you. Good afternoon, and thank you very much for giving me the floor here for a couple of minutes to say something about European Business Ethics Network. So it's a European organization with chapters in almost all countries of Europe. Not only the European Union, but also even Eastern Europe, formerly Russia, for instance, and Romania as well, and Poland and these places. So for us as an organization, it was a rather a blank year in the sense that we have usually two conferences, an annual conferences where there is academics and business people, and also research conferences, which is more focusing on academics and research. But both had to be cancelled, and the reason is absolutely obvious. There was just the COVID crisis, and one of the places where we normally had to go was St. Petersburg, and the borders were closed, so there was absolutely no possibility. And then, of course, we could have switched to online, and that's actually what we are doing now. In the coming spring, we will have a series of online workshops, but they will be workshops, one workshop every week or something like this, because it doesn't make sense to have a kind of online conference of 2 full days or 3 days, because no one really stays in front of his computer to listen to let's say, presentations of research during the day. If you're in the conference with other people, where you have the mix of presentations and informal discussions and spending time with your colleagues, that's nice. But being in a conference online, like for instance, the American colleagues of Society for Business Ethics have done, and then someone says, now it's time for a coffee break, and you're just there in your study at home, and it's kind of, so you miss the whole informal side. But that's why it's difficult to do the same format if you organize a conference. You do it online. You have to adapt to the typical online possibilities with shorter sessions, etc. That's what you all have learned during the last months, and so we will definitely do some new initiatives, and then we hope to start again with our usual activities later on. So in most countries there have been little activity, and so this is one of the exceptions today. You have these even Greece awards for responsible business. That's great. But as I see here on my screen, it's also an online event. Of course, you see it, you're all in different rooms. You're not in one big room somewhere. So, but I would like to say something about positive side of the whole pandemic situation. And there is something positive to be said about it. And my idea is the following. Normally, still many people, if you say to someone, I'm working in business ethics, some people react in a kind of skeptical way and have still that old-fashioned idea that business ethics is an oxymoron. So there's kind of contradiction. In business, most of the people in business are focusing on money and shareholder value, and the human side is often sometimes kind of in a cynical way neglected. Of course, we all know here in this session that this is not true, but there is still some reluctance to accept that on average, business people have integrated this ethical side. Now, this became clear during the crisis. At once, in March, here in France at least, it became clear that what really matters in life and what is important. And so the shareholder value was at once gone. No one was talking about it. No one was talking about dividends. And so businesses were also seen in another way. For instance, At once, people appreciated, because everything was closed and was a full lockdown, except grocery retailers. And then there was a kind of respect for the people working in that sector, who are normally kind of low-skilled jobs, people who just serve in groceries and in supermarkets. Now, it was indeed they became like a kind of heroes at once, kind of total different perspective. There was also other aspects. For instance, of course, the government took lots of measures, but businesses as well. For instance, just to give you an example of some French companies like L'Oréal, they make perfume and luxury stuff. They started to produce hydroalcoholic gel, which was just delivered to hospitals and things like this. There was also people who produced masks quickly. So there was a kind of taking responsibility on the side of business, which was absolutely appreciated. Now, there was also other things. So what really became clear in that period was that businesses, of course, business people are there to make money. That's for sure. I mean, profit is the motive. Is the motive of doing business, but it's not the only thing. So you always you need a combination of profit seeking together with a purpose. Now, sometimes people forget a purpose, and then during that period, the purpose became clear again. And then you see that there's indeed something like doing business in a responsible way in favor of a purpose that makes sense. So yet the whole sense-making aspect, purpose-driven business became a much more obvious thing. So in this sense, the pandemic was a kind of wake-up call for many people. It was also clear that the stakeholders became more important. For instance, employees. It was difficult to lay off people. Of course, there will be an economic crisis that will follow, because now it's a kind of an artificial situation where the government sponsors unemployment, etc. But still, there is a kind of broader awareness of what really is important in life than only, let's say, shareholder value. So that's the most important point. And the second one is that there is an awareness growing now that there will be not such a thing as going back to normal as if nothing happened. There will be a new normal, in the sense that for people from my generation, I never have been living in a situation of uncertainty over a while like this, like last year. So there was a kind of, people who have lived in the Second World War, etc., have had these periods, but otherwise we were kind of certainty everything was going quite well. And then you see that these great things can happen. It was simply, no one could have even imagined this 1 year ago, that this would happen. So kind of disbelief. And now what we know is that there might be other challenges, whatever be climate change, demographic pressure, all these kind of elements. And it might be that we will live in a period of more uncertainty than we had been living during the last decades. Now, so this will lead to new challenges, and also to a new way of thinking about doing business, and doing business in a responsible way. That's a kind of paradoxical situation, because on the one hand, it will become more obvious that business has to be done in a responsible way. That's one side. But the other side is that it will be more difficult to define what that means, because it will be more complex to just say, it's not just taking into account some stakeholder interest or trying to find a balance. It might be much more complex than this in the coming period. So as a professor of business ethics in a business school, it's also a challenge for education, because you have to think, what kind of managers, what kind of executives do we have to train? What is the purpose of our training sessions, our education? Of course, we always will need some people who know something about accounting and these kind of things. But it might be that in times of uncertainty, like the ones we are living now, it might be that soft skills and the capacity to have ethical judgment becomes more important than simply technical skills. So there might be an also kind of perspective on what is really important, might be more important than it used to be. So that's also a challenge for us. Just to finish here, this initiative, this type of initiatives, like the one that you have today here, the EBEN Greece Awards, it's absolutely necessary that this goes on, because this shows the way to businesses in general. It's a kind of you share best practices, you show exemplary ways of doing business, which may incentivize other people to think about it and to step in. And that's the way in which business ethics makes progress. So there has been lots of progress in business ethics over the last, let's say, 35 years, something like this. There is absolutely many aspects in which business is no longer done it as it has been done 30 years ago. There is new things that have been accepted now. For instance, things like moral harassment or bribery or corruption. There has been way big progresses there. It might be the case that we have to go further in these things, and that business people will be invited to play their role in an even more responsible way in the future. Okay, I thank you very much, and I will follow the rest of the speeches if it's in English and not in Greece. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Geert. First of all, what I want to mention is that Geert is a star in the business ethic world in the academy. So really, I appreciate your speech. What exactly I have in my mind after what you said is that we have to expect after the COVID story, probably end of next year, to revamp the EBEN network so that we can see the life of business ethic in the business in completely another way. So, dear Geert, thank you really very much. I appreciate you spent a couple of hours with us. I know that going back, but thank you very much, and I hope to see you soon in one of the countries that we are running different conferences. Thank you very much.